Hey guys! So last week Drew and I talked to you about the ventures we've had so far in natural living, and most of it, actually all of it, was based on outdoor things that you do when you have some land. So I wanted to touch a little bit on the things that we'll also be covering that you can do indoors without any land. And there's kind of three categories. I'm sure there will be more as we go, but the first category is holistic cooking. We're going to be cooking with whole ingredients that are natural, the way our bodies are meant to digest them. So that's going to be really fun. We are also going to be doing natural herbs and remedies and herbal teas that can be really good for your health, especially in the winter time when colds and flus are going around. It'll be really good to have those under our belts as well. And for the third one, we will be doing indoor herb gardens and plants that you can grow indoors and how to do that. So we're going to be incorporating a little bit of everything. And today our plan is to talk about something you can do to cook more holistically. And that's going to include using natural yeast. So we're going to get our supplies over here and we're going to tell you a little bit about natural yeast.
Are you tired of eating dry, tasteless bread that's been cooked with dry, instant yeast? Do you long to eat something fresh and natural that connects you to the roots of your ancestors? If so, then say no more to dry, instant yeast. And say hello to fresh, natural yeast. With natural yeast, now you can enjoy moist, flavorful bread that is a delight to all.
So today, I'm going to show you how to make a natural yeast. Well, first I'm going to show you how to feed natural yeast, and then I'm going to show you how to start a natural yeast. That way you can have one of your own and start baking with it. So this is my yeast. Name is Fern. And I don't know if you can see that very well. There's kind of a liquid on top of her. Don't mind the gross looking jar, it's going to be clean in a minute. But that liquid is something we want to get rid of. That's what the yeast makes as it eats the flour that's in your yeast. It's living and it creates probiotics for us. So when we eat it, not only is it breaking down the gluten in the bread, but it's also creating probiotics in your bread, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to drain this out really quick. So here's the yeast after I've drained it, and what we're going to do is we're going to pour out most of it into this bowl because we're going to use it later. So I'm going to pour out, let's see, I use my wooden spoon here, probably about 2/3 of what's in my jar. This bowl, isn't that lovely? Slimy yeast, it's beautiful. Once you get into it, you kind of develop a love for your yeast because it takes effort. It's not super hard, but it's kind of feels like a pet sometimes. And I'm sounding crazy to all the people that are watching this, but it's fun. Okay, so now that we've got our yeast in a clean jar, we're gonna add some water. And when I add water to my yeast, I usually do it 1-to-1 ratio, or maybe, let's see, what do I do it to? I kind of just add water. That's like a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts water, 1 part yeast starter. Mix it up, and you want to always add the water first. So I dissolve the yeast into the water. Then I just use a scooper. And I use white flour for this process just because the yeast does break it down, and I found it's a lot easier to maintain. Okay, and you mix that around, and it's all about the consistency, so I'll show you guys. Right now it's really runny, like just super runny. I'm gonna add some more flour. And I'm adding this by 1/4 cup increments. And you mix it, and another tip is to try and use a wooden or a plastic utensil instead of metal, because metal doesn't have a great effect on natural yeast for some reason. So this is about the consistency you want. So I ended up adding, so it kind of looks like that. I'm gonna mix it so it's a little less clumpy. I don't know if you can see that. I don't like that. I like mine a bit runnier. I feel like it is a lot easier to use and maintain when it's more wet than dry. But every person kind of finds their flow once they get used to using natural yeast. Alright. So, I'm going to set this lid on top just to keep stuff out, but I don't screw it down all the way, I just set it on. And we'll watch that, and in a little bit I'll show you the bubbles that have grown inside of it. Drew, come in and join us.
Hello!
I'm going to teach Drew how to mix a natural yeast from scratch.
And I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'll be learning with the rest of you as well.
Woohoo! It's going to be fun. So, what we have here is potato starch water. We made some mashed potatoes today, and this is the leftover water. They say that it helps your natural yeast start up quicker, so we'll see what it does. And we have white flour and whole wheat flour. We're going to see which one of them takes off fastest and kind of experiment with them along the way to see like if we like the results of the white flour or whole wheat flour and the yeast starter better. So let's get started.
Should I take the jar off this one?
No,
the
that
lid off
one's
this one?
Fern's just here to watch.
Just here to look good.
Yep. And we also have 2 halves of a blackberry. When you're starting a natural yeast, it's helpful to have a fruit with the skin that you can eat. So you wouldn't want to use oranges or bananas because you don't eat the peel and the skin of that. But like grapes, any kind of berry really, apples, you can use those as long as they're organic or fresh somewhere that you got them natural. Because if they have chemicals or wax spread on the outside, it just won't work.
So why do we use berries? Like what are they for?
That's a great question. So these fruits have something called wild yeast. Yeast grows on lots of things in nature in its wild state, and you can harvest it, so to speak, by adding something that has wild yeast already on it into your flour and water mixture. So it introduces yeast and gives your little yeast starter a kickstart.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get started. We're gonna do, not super precise, but just like, we have no measurements on this one. That's okay. We're gonna do about that much water in each one. And then we're gonna do about equal parts flour. So if you want to start scooping some flour until it's about doubled.
Okay.
Actually do it a little bit less than doubled.
Okay. Sorry, I took the only measuring spoon.
It's okay, we'll see what this one looks like first.
See if I fail, and if I do, then we'll know not to do it like I did.
I don't think you'll fail. Yeast is pretty resilient. Maybe try mixing that up where you have it and then add some more.
Pretty thick.
Yeah, I'm gonna add a little bit more of this water for you. You don't want it to be too thick, you actually want it to be pretty runny at first because that helps the yeast kind of catch on and start growing. And after you mix up the yeast, what you're going to do is you're going to set it in a place that's about 75 degrees or close to that, depending on just what your climate's like in your house, I guess. But you're going to stir it at least once a day and introduce air until it starts creating bubbles on its own. Because when you stir it, you create bubbles, but that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for bubbles to be created just because the yeast is eating the flour, the gluten.
Okay. Does that look like the right
Yeah, that looks
consistency?
good.
Do I
Do
need
you
more
want to add your
flour?
blackberry in it? No, that looks good. Boop. So we'll just leave that. And wait,
Do I mix it in?
no, you don't need to mix it in. Just set it there. And then we will do this whole wheat one and see what the differences are. think of a name for that one.
Barb.
Barb?
Barbara.
Okay. Something to note when you're keeping natural yeast, it creates a sourdough for your bread or whatever you're making with it. But the thicker you make your yeast, the more sour it will be. The thinner it is, like the more watery, the less sour. So if you're looking for a starter that's super sour and you want like sourdough bread, you want to make your yeast start really thick before you use it. But if you want it to be used for like, say, desserts, to rise cinnamon rolls, or to rise like sandwich bread, and you don't want it super sour or sour at all, you're gonna make it pretty liquidy. So I don't know how well you can see that, but it's kind of like a runny texture.
In comparison to pancake batter, what should it look like?
No, it's about pancake batter. Pretty runny pancake batter.
It's about what mine was as well.
Alright, so we are gonna set these aside, and I'll take pictures of them over the next couple days, because usually it takes a starter 4 to 5 days to kind of pick up. We only have 3 days till Thursday, so we'll see what they do before then, and I'll include those pictures in the video for everybody. Alright, so I told you when I was making the yeast, sorry, it's been a day or two since I did feed the yeast, but we set aside some of the yeast that we poured out into a bowl. And I've fed it since then, and I'm gonna pour some more into this bowl. And when you use the yeast without making it rise, it's just called discard. So we're gonna use discard, and we're gonna make Dutch babies. And some people call them German pancakes, but the true name is Dutch babies. Just kidding. They are definitely a family favorite. I grew up with my mom and dad making Dutch babies all the time. They're so good. So what we're gonna do to start off, we're gonna melt some butter in this because butter's delicious. So I'm gonna get 4 tablespoons of butter, put it in here, and we're gonna put it in the oven as it preheats to 350 degrees. Let's do that. So we've got our butter, and we're going to add, decided 4 tablespoons looked like a lot, so I might do more like 2 tablespoons. Goes in the oven. Okay, so while that warms up in the oven and the butter melts, we are going to, I poured a cup of discard in this bowl. We're gonna mix up the Dutch babies. So we've got a cup of discard, and then we'll do a cup and a fourth of flour. Now I use whole wheat flour. This is stuff from Walmart, Wheat Montana. It's really good. Ooh. Dutch babies are honestly a great breakfast because they have a ton of eggs in them and milk, so there's pretty high protein, and they're delicious. And you can make them like I am right now ahead of time, and then you just warm them up when you're ready to eat them in the morning for breakfast, and it's so quick. Super nice. So we got a cup and a fourth of flour, 1 cup of natural yeast, discard. We're gonna do a cup of milk. So then we're gonna add our 6 eggs that Drew got for us. Thank you, Drew. And whisk it up. So let's do it. Drew's gonna hop in and we're gonna tell you a little bit.
Like that?
It looks like a man with a shaggy white hairdo.
Where's my family? Oh, I need to go to bed.